The year is 1893. Queen Victoria is the monarch, William Gladstone the Prime Minister. The motorcar's just been invented and both Liverpool and Newcastle United football clubs are celebrating their first birthday. At the same time, in the rural town of Enfield, just north of London, a group of youngsters decided to form a football club called Enfield Spartans. They played only friendly matches in their debut season at their Bailey's Field ground just off Baker Street. The following season they joined the Tottenham and District Junior League and moved to Tucker's Field, home ground of an earlier Enfield Football Club. With no amenities on site, players had to change in the George Public House in Enfield Town and walk the mile or so to the ground in full kit. When a ground nearer to the town centre became available, on the demise of the other Enfield Football Club, the Spartans took up residence and within a couple of years dropped the word Spartans from their name. The club's formative years were spent in a number of local leagues: the Tottenham and District Junior League, the North Middlesex League, the London League and the Middlesex and District League. Enfield managed to win 4 league titles during this time and secured the Middlesex Charity Cup in 1910 and the Journal de Liège Cup on foreign soil in 1912. Several of their players had represented Middlesex, as can be seen from the crest on their shirt. Their star player was Sid Crowell, who played once for Tottenham Hotspur in the Football League and on 15 occasions during the First World War. As well as representing the county, he also played in a trial for the England amateur team. The club switched to the Athenian League in 1912 was an indication of their growing status, and the prestigious Middlesex Senior Cup was won for the first time in 1914. But the First World War put an end to their contests on the football field. When the players returned from the forces, they were faced with the problems of having no club and the former ground having been cultivated to produce food for the residents of Enfield. The Tucker family came to the rescue by allowing the reborn club to use their former pitch, and this time the officials and fans started to build a ground worthy of the club. Their 3 previous grounds had been little more than roped off pitches, but now a stand and dressing rooms were erected using volunteer labour. The club spent their first post-war seasons in the Middlesex League and the London League, before gaining re-election to the Athenian League in 1921. The interwar years were not particularly successful ones for Enfield. Second place in 1935 was their highest league placing, a season which also witnessed Enfield's greatest achievement so far, in beating Metropolitan Police in the London Senior Cup final at Leighton. They also gained a place in the last 4 of the Amateur Cup, but the last 3 seasons before the Second World War saw the club finish in the bottom 2 places. There was cause for celebration as Jack Anderson became Enfield's first international when he was selected to play against Ireland in November 1929. And 3 more players, Billy Heel, Reg Beswarwick and Les Hockaday, would gain international honours during the 1930s. In 1936, Enfield left Tucker's Field, which would soon disappear under a housing estate, for the newly built stadium in Southbury Road. The first match at the ground was played on October 31st, 1936 against Golders Green in the FA Cup. Edgar Kirby had the honour of scoring the first goal. The official opening of the ground took place the following week, with a number of dignitaries present. Sadly, the new ground did not inspire the players on the pitch, but the facilities will stand the club in good stead for many years to come. After war was declared in 1939, Enfield continued to participate in local competitions for 3 seasons, until they decided to cease playing. The ground was used for fundraising charity matches, as well as for sporting events for the armed services, and the buildings were utilised as an ARP base and a temporary mortuary, together with a neighbouring swimming pool. When competition resumed in 1945, all teams faced disruption due to the problems of when their players would return from the forces, and Enfield's lineup was ever changing, but one shining star emerged in the form of Jack Rawlings. Enfield benefited from his presence when he scored the only goal as they won the Middlesex Senior Cup final against Hendon at White Hart Lane in 1947. But 2 years later, Jack decided to leave the club and join Hayes. More lean years were to follow, the club's tenure at the stadium threatened by the council's insistence that there should be a greater number of local players in the team. And in 1954, the board of directors decided to appoint their first professional manager-coach. Former Chelsea, Swindon Town and Southport player Alex White was chosen for the role, and under his leadership the club's fortunes started to improve, his good work being maintained when former Tottenham Hotspur player George Ludford succeeded White in 1957. The major upturn in Enfield's fortunes came in the summer of 1959. A number of new signings were made, foremost of which was centre forward Tommy Lawrence from Hendon. Not only did he lead from the front with an avalanche of goals, but his presence was enough to persuade former colleagues from Hendon and Barnet to follow him to the club. The 1959-60 campaign saw the club progress to the second round of the FA Cup for the very first time, and the Amateur Cup semi-final was reached for the first time in 25 years. It was to herald a period of 30 years of near unbroken success. From 1960 to 1990, Enfield won 11 league titles, the Athenian League twice, Isthmian League 7 times and the Conference twice, and were runners-up on a further 5 occasions. They also reached 15 Middlesex Senior Cup finals, winning 10, 8 London Senior Cup finals, winning 5, and 7 further County and League Cups, with 4 victories. However, their most celebrated triumphs came in the national competitions. Enfield finally reached Wembley for the first time in 1964, but their quest for Amateur Cup glory was hampered by injury. Talisman Lawrence had suffered a career-ending fractured skull in a trial match for the Great British Olympic team. Stalwart defender Peter Terry injured his back days before the final, but the match itself saw goalkeeper Malcolm Mitchell suffer a broken arm, with Enfield leading Crooktown 1-0. In the pre-substitute days, winger Roy Thomas was forced to don the keeper's jersey, while Mitchell returned to play outfield with a heavily strapped arm. But the disruption caused proved too great, and Enfield lost to Crook by 2-1. With the high quality of players now at Enfield's disposal, it was just a matter of time before the club secured the top prize in amateur football. And with Tommy Lawrence now in the manager's seat, Enfield were back at Wembley in 1967 to face Skelmersdale. Their path to the final had been blighted by tragedy when Highgate United centre-half Tony Alden had been struck by lightning and killed during their quarter-final tie, the match being replayed at an emotion-filled Villa Park. In the final itself, 2 hours of tense football was climaxed by Ian Wolstenholme's penalty save late into extra time, before a crowd of 75,000. The replay, a week later at Main Road, Manchester, was witnessed by 55,000, and Enfield made no mistake and won the Amateur Cup for the first time by 3-0. Enfield were back at Wembley 3 years later, again victorious after an emphatic 5-1 win over Dagenham, while their fourth final in 8 years ended in disappointment, losing to Middlesex neighbours Hendon by 2-0 in 1972. Victory in the 1970 Amateur Cup final saw Enfield qualify for the short-lived European Amateur Cup Winners' Cup, where they defeated Italian champions Ponte San Pietro 4-2 over 2 legs. One of Enfield's most successful seasons was 1977-78, when they won 35 of their 42 league matches, accumulating a record 110 points, 31 more than Dagenham, who were runners-up. They also reached the third round of the FA Cup for the first time in their history, after wins over Football League teams Wimbledon and Northampton Town. Sadly, their run of success was ended by another non-league club, Blythe Spartans. In 1981, the club accepted an invitation to join the Alliance Premier League, which saw the team compete at the top level of non-league football, alongside such clubs as Altrincham, Yeovil Town and neighbours Barnet. Enfield had been an amateur team throughout their history, However, in 1974, a change in the laws meant that their players could now receive a reward for their talents. This change saw the end of the Amateur Cup, which Enfield had fought so hard to win. Its status as the most important prize in non-league football was assumed by the FA Trophy, and after several near misses, Enfield had 2 further successes at Wembley. Enfield captured national headlines with their giant-killing exploits in the FA Cup. Between 1977 and 1999, they defeated Football League opposition on 11 occasions. Their most successful season came in 1980-81, under manager Eddie McCluskey. After defeating Hereford United and Port Vale, they were drawn away to Barnsley in the 4th round. A late Peter Burton goal salvaged a 1-1 draw in Yorkshire, and due to the interest generated in the tie, the replay was switched to White Hart Lane. Many thousands of fans were locked out. A capacity crowd witnessed the end of the fairy tale, as Barnsley's superior finishing saw them to a 3-0 win. Another occasion when Enfield made national headlines came in 1983, when their FA Trophy game against Ilkeston Town was abandoned due to crowd trouble. The match was not replayed, and the 5-1 scoreline was allowed to stand. The team's success was reflected in personal reward for the players. Enfield provided 27 players for the England Amateur International team between 1960 and its abolition in 1974, far more than any other club, and a further 10 played for his successor, the England semi-professional team. A number of players progressed into the Football League, the most notable being Paul Furlong, who played for 9 different league teams in a career spanning 19 years. At the time of his transfer from Watford to Chelsea in May 1994, the transfer fee of £2.3 million was the largest that Chelsea had ever paid. The 1990s saw a new addition to Enfield Football Club in the form of a ladies' team. Originally formed as Merry Hills Midgets in 1985, Enfield ladies were able to use the better facilities provided at the stadium as they progressed to higher levels of football. Everything in football is cyclical, and Enfield's years of glory were coming to a close. 2 years after winning the FA Trophy, the club suffered its first ever relegation in 1990. Back in the Isthmian Football League, Enfield finished runners-up 3 times in the next 4 years, narrowly missing out on promotion back to the conference. 1994-05 was an outstanding season. Enfield reached the 3rd round of the FA Cup, where they met top-flight opposition for the first time. They put up a brave fight before losing 2-0 at Leicester City. They also managed to win their league title, heading Slough Town by 14 points, but they were denied promotion as their financial situation failed to satisfy the conference's criteria for admission. The club finished the next 2 seasons as runners-up before a decline in fortune set in, and the biggest setback occurred in 1999 when their Southbury Road ground was sold for development, and with no replacement in sight, the club became nomads. A large number of fans were concerned at what was happening to their precious club, and in 2001 they took the unprecedented step of breaking away to form their own club, Enfield Town. This became a template for future fans-owned clubs, such as AFC Wimbledon and FC United of Manchester. In 2011, the club moved into the refurbished Queen Elizabeth II Stadium, across the playing fields from the old Southbury Road ground. They marked the event by reaching the end-of-season playoffs and gaining promotion to the Premier Division of the Isthmian League, the level at which the old club had been playing when they left Southbury Road. Meanwhile, Enfield Football Club struggled on, homeless and with a greatly reduced following. Ground sharing arrangements were made with Bournemouth and Ware, but in 2007 they were forced to cease trading when they were unable to reach an agreement within their revenue over repaying the debts. A new club, Enfield 1893, was formed to take its place, and they too started their new life in the Essex Senior League, playing at Ware's ground. Subsequently, they moved in with Broxbourne Borough, before returning to the borough of Enfield in 2010 by merging with Brimsdown Rovers and playing at their Goldsdown Road ground. Enfield Football Club survived 2 world wars, the loss of 3 grounds, numerous financial crises and 114 years. During those years, they gave opportunities to local lads to hone their skills, a lifetime of memories, both good and bad, to fans and players alike, fostered lifelong friendships and carried the name of Enfield proudly to all parts of the British Isles and beyond.